What if everything you've been taught about honesty is only half the story? That promotion you missed or relationship that soured, could honesty have played a surprising role? While we praise truth-telling as a virtue, the 4th century BCE philosopher Chanakya saw honesty as a tool, not a moral absolute. Here's what's fascinating. In his writings, Chanakya identified specific scenarios where honesty actively harms you and those around you. This strategic dimension of communication remains hidden to most people. Stay with me as I break down 3 transformative principles: when to withhold truth, how to navigate difficult conversations, and mastering strategic transparency that will forever change your approach to communication. What if your commitment to telling it like it is actually sabotaging your most important relationships? Think about the last time you felt compelled to share an uncomfortable truth with someone close to you. Did it strengthen your connection or create distance? Chanakya, the strategic genius behind one of history's greatest empires, would view this question through an entirely different lens than we typically do today. In Chanakya's world, communication isn't primarily a moral showcase where you prove your virtue through unwavering honesty. Instead, he saw communication as a strategic tool designed to build and maintain valuable relationships. This perspective directly challenges our modern assumption that honesty is always the right choice, regardless of consequences. We've all heard the virtuous claims, "I just tell it like it is," or "I believe in radical honesty no matter what." These statements position brutal honesty as morally superior to restraint. Chanakya would find this perspective dangerously simplistic. He understood something crucial: relationships are strategic assets that require careful maintenance through thoughtful communication. In his Arthashastra, Chanakya emphasized cultivating strong relationships with people who matter to your success. These connections, built on trust and loyalty, become your most valuable assets, but they're surprisingly fragile when faced with unfiltered honesty. Consider what happens in a workplace scenario. A team leader publicly points out every flaw in a colleague's presentation, believing transparency helps everyone improve. What's the result? The criticized employee feels humiliated rather than helped. Team members become anxious about sharing ideas. Trust in the leader diminishes. Collaboration suffers as people withhold input to avoid criticism. Even when delivered with good intentions, brutal honesty often destroys trust rather than building it. This happens because it typically prioritizes momentary release over the long-term health of the relationship. Modern psychological research confirms Chanakya's ancient insight. Studies involving romantic partners show that expressed and perceived honesty positively impacts relationships, even when truths are difficult. But note the careful wording: not brutal honesty, but expressed honesty that considers how the message will be received. Our current culture of radical honesty stands in stark contrast to Chanakya's strategic restraint. "I'm just being honest" becomes the shield behind which people hide after delivering painful messages. This approach actively harms your strategic position in life. Honesty becomes particularly destructive in specific scenarios: when offering unsolicited criticism under the guise of helping, when sharing negative observations about things people cannot change, when choosing public settings for delivering difficult truths. According to Chanakya's framework, brutal honesty backfires because it prioritizes your emotional release over the other person's dignity and the relationship's health. True honesty is characterized by clarity, specificity, and authenticity, not by expressions of anger or hurtful language disguised as truth-telling. Compare telling someone, "That idea will never work," versus, "I see some challenges with that approach that we should discuss." Both convey the same concern, but one preserves the relationship while the other damages it. The wisdom here isn't about becoming dishonest. It's about understanding that relationships are assets worth protecting through thoughtful communication. Every interaction, either builds or erodes these connections, and making these choices consciously serves your long-term interests better than defaulting to brutal honesty. But this raises an important question. If complete honesty isn't always the answer, when should you actually withhold the truth? If some truths cause unnecessary harm, how do we determine which information should be shared and which should be withheld? The line between strategic restraint and deception can seem thin, but Chanakya developed clear principles for navigating this complex territory. Have you ever wondered if there are situations where speaking the complete truth is actually the wrong choice? We've all faced moments where we hesitated before sharing information, not because we wanted to deceive, but because we questioned whether full disclosure was truly beneficial. Chanakya, in his strategic wisdom, offers a perspective that challenges our modern absolutist view of honesty. Chanakya taught that ethics must be understood within the context of outcomes, not just intentions. This principle directly contradicts our common belief that good intentions, like telling the complete truth, automatically produce good results. In reality, Chanakya recognized that even well-intentioned honesty can cause harm when delivered without strategic consideration. Truth, like a double-edged sword, can both illuminate and wound. Consider these everyday scenarios. Would you tell a friend every negative thought about their new haircut? This seemingly minor withholding protects feelings while preserving the relationship. Would you share your complete opinion of a colleague's presentation skills in front of their entire team? Here, strategic silence prevents public embarrassment while allowing for private improvement. Would you tell a child about a parent's terminal illness before preparations had been made for their care? In this case, timing the disclosure prevents unnecessary trauma. I once witnessed a manager who delayed telling his team about potential layoffs until he had secured alternative positions for them. Had he shared this information immediately, weeks of anxiety would have preceded the solution. His strategic timing prevented needless suffering while still ensuring his team received the information they needed. Chanakya's approach to truth-telling was firmly rooted in the understanding that timing and context matter more than absolute truth in many situations. He viewed information as a resource to be deployed strategically, not as a burden requiring immediate release. This doesn't mean embracing deception, but rather recognizing that information delivery requires skill. This connects to the concept of the right not to be deceived in ethics research. While this sounds absolute, researchers note that this right is contextual rather than universal, varying based on the relationship between the individuals involved and the specific matter at hand. A spouse has a greater right to information about significant life events than a casual acquaintance. Chanakya identified specific scenarios where withholding information protects rather than harms, when sharing would enable enemies to exploit vulnerabilities, when premature disclosure would create panic, or when the recipient lacks context to properly interpret the information. Modern research confirms Chanakya's intuition. The Harvard Business Review notes justifiable reasons for departing from the truth, such as compassion or avoiding greater harm, while emphasizing that a basic intent to be truthful is essential for sustained civilized dealings. In professional settings, a Chanakyan approach involves building trust through transparency, while recognizing when certain information might be destructive rather than constructive. Ethical leadership balances openness with strategic communication. When is withholding truth actually ethical? Chanakya would point to 3 circumstances: when disclosure would cause disproportionate harm, when the information isn't relevant to the other person's decision-making, and when timing would make the truth destructive rather than constructive. This approach requires judgment, weighing information's value against its impact, considering the recipient's needs, and evaluating timing. These considerations transform truth-telling from a simple moral imperative into a strategic skill. Chanakya understood that relationships are too valuable to damage through careless honesty, yet too important to undermine through deception. The middle path he advocated was one of thoughtful disclosure, guided by both compassion and strategy. Now that we understand when to withhold truth, let's examine how Chanakya himself balanced honesty with strategic goals in building an empire. What if the most powerful communicators in history weren't the most honest, but the most strategic? This question strikes at the heart of Chanakya's approach to information sharing. When we look at how he helped establish the Mauryan Empire, one of ancient India's most extensive and influential realms, we see a master of strategic communication at work. Chanakya's brilliance lay in how he guided Chandragupta Maurya to the throne at just 19 years old. Their success stemmed from the careful management of information to achieve specific objectives. This strategic approach to communication helped create an empire that stretched across the Indian subcontinent, demonstrating the practical power of Chanakya's methods. For Chanakya, ethics weren't about blind adherence to absolute honesty, but about using communication to create positive outcomes for the greater good. He practiced what we might call appropriate disclosure, sharing the right information with the right people at the right time. This approach counters our modern tendency to overshare regardless of consequences. Chanakya understood that information is power, and its release should be managed with the same care as any other valuable resource. The historical record reveals Chanakya's application of this principle. When gathering intelligence about neighboring kingdoms, he created networks of informants, but compartmentalized information, ensuring no single person had the complete picture. When negotiating with allies, he revealed strengths that would attract their loyalty, while keeping certain capabilities hidden as strategic advantages. When addressing the public, he crafted messages that built confidence in the new regime while maintaining security. Through these practices, Chanakya built trust while being selective about transparency. He demonstrated that trust comes through consistency between words and actions, not necessarily through complete disclosure of all information. This concept of selective transparency remains powerful today. According to a 2019 Harvard Business Review study, 61% of executives believe strategic information management is critical to organizational success. Like a CEO who shares quarterly challenges with the executive team while presenting a carefully crafted message to shareholders, effective leaders manage information flow with audience and timing in mind. Corporate leaders might share different aspects of a restructuring plan with employees than with the media. This strategic communication serves the organization's long-term interests when done ethically. Similarly, military leaders have always practiced need-to-know information sharing, recognizing that complete transparency would compromise their mission. The key distinction in Chanakya's approach was balancing short-term tactical communication with long-term strategic goals. He never sacrificed the larger vision for a momentary advantage, creating a consistent pattern that built trust over time, even while practicing selective disclosure. How did Chanakya balance honesty with his strategic vision? He treated truth as a valuable resource to be deployed thoughtfully. He shared information that served the greater good, while withholding details that might undermine it. Most importantly, he prioritized outcomes over process, understanding that the goal of a stable, prosperous empire justified careful management of information. Chanakya's approach provides timeless guidance for building trusted organizations. By prioritizing integrity and aligning values, he established a foundation for sustainable growth that minimized risks while encouraging accountability. The lesson is clear. Strategic communication means thoughtful disclosure that serves larger goals. It requires understanding that every piece of information has potential consequences, and timing matters as much as content. This approach demands more skill than simply telling it like it is, but produces better results in complex human relationships. But this raises a crucial question. How can you recognize when someone is using honesty as a weapon against? What if the person claiming to just be honest with you is actually executing a calculated attack on your confidence? We've all encountered those moments when someone shares their honest opinion in a way that leaves us feeling diminished rather than informed. Chanakya, with his deep understanding of human behavior, warned explicitly about this form of strategic manipulation. In the world of strategic interaction that Chanakya describes, truth can be weaponized as effectively as falsehood. This involves the strategic use of facts, delivered in a manner designed to destabilize your confidence, diminish your standing, or manipulate your decisions. Understanding this distinction is crucial for protecting yourself in both personal and professional environments. Consider this scenario. A colleague offers feedback on your presentation minutes before you face executives, pointing out flaws you can't possibly fix in time. The information may be accurate, but the timing ensures maximum anxiety and minimal improvement. Chanakya would recognize the difference between genuine honesty and strategic truth-telling. Genuine honesty comes from care and aims to strengthen relationships, focusing on information the recipient can use constructively. Weaponized honesty contains truths you can do nothing about, delivered to maximize emotional impact rather than understanding. According to Chanakya's strategic thinking, information sharing should serve a constructive purpose. When someone shares information with you, ask yourself, does this information help me advance my goals, or does it primarily undermine my confidence or position? This question reveals whether the honesty is meant to benefit or weaken you. The warning signs of weaponized honesty are consistent. Consider the timing. Is this truth shared at a vulnerable moment for you? Examine the setting. Is this feedback delivered publicly where it might humiliate? Notice the detail level. Does the critique include unnecessary or painful specifics that don't serve improvement? Finally, evaluate the intent. Does the truth teller offer solutions or merely criticism? Modern research confirms what Chanakya understood intuitively, that brutal honesty often functions as social dominance rather than genuine communication. Those who pride themselves on telling it like it is frequently overstate opinions as facts, using honesty to establish control. The article, Why Brutal Honesty Isn't Honest at All, points out that this approach prioritizes the speaker's emotional release over the recipient's feelings. Chanakya would advise evaluating the intent behind information sharing. What does the speaker gain from sharing? Is the information actionable? Does their pattern of honesty consistently build you up or tear you down over time? When honesty is weaponized against you, resist the urge to fight back with your own brutal honesty or withdraw entirely. Instead, maintain strategic composure, acknowledge the information without accepting the emotional framing, and redirect toward constructive solutions if possible. The article Why Brutal Honesty Isn't Honest at All offers a practical alternative. Focus on being clear, specific, sincere, and authentic in your communication. Separate facts from opinions and seek to understand others' perspectives. This approach, share facts, tell your story, opinion, and ask for others' perspectives, provides a structure that disarms manipulative intent and fosters constructive dialogue. Remember that according to Chanakya's teachings, true strength comes from strategically evaluating information based on its intent and usefulness. By developing this discernment, you protect yourself from those who use truth as a weapon while remaining open to honest feedback that genuinely serves your growth. Now that you can identify when honesty becomes weaponized, let's develop your personal framework for strategic communication that balances truthfulness with wisdom. What if you could develop a personal communication system that serves your goals while maintaining your integrity? Most of us struggle with this balance daily. We want to be honest, but also effective, truthful, but also strategic. Chanakya recognized this fundamental tension centuries ago and developed principles we can use to create our own communication framework. In today's world, we face a constant stream of communication decisions. Should you tell your boss about a mistake immediately or wait until you have a solution? Should you share your concerns about a friend's relationship or remain silent? Should you express your opinion in a heated group discussion or strategically observe? Each scenario requires a personal framework that aligns with both your values and your goals. The challenge lies in finding the middle path between absolute honesty and strategic silence. Most people default to one extreme, either sharing everything without filter or withholding important truths out of fear. Chanakya would recognize both approaches as strategically flawed. The first damages relationships unnecessarily, while the second prevents meaningful connection and progress toward goals. Modern research offers a three-step model that aligns perfectly with Chanakya's strategic approach. Step 1. Share observable facts. Step 2. Tell your story, your opinion, or interpretation. Step 3. Ask for others' perspectives. This model creates a foundation for honesty while acknowledging that your perception is just one perspective. By separating observable facts from your interpretation, you maintain honesty while creating space for dialogue rather than conflict. Chanakya's approach to evaluating when and how to share information was always based on long-term goals. He understood that the value of communication should be measured by its contribution to your ultimate objectives, not its immediate emotional release. Before sharing potentially difficult truths, ask yourself these practical questions. What is my goal in sharing this information? Is this the right timing? Am I the right person to deliver this message? Have I considered how the recipient will receive this information? These questions transform communication from reactive to strategic, exactly as Chanakya would advise. Consider this workplace scenario. Your team member consistently misses deadlines, affecting the entire project. Rather than publicly criticizing them in a meeting, you might say, "I noticed the last 3 deliverables were submitted after the deadline. Fact, I'm concerned about our project timeline." Your story. And what challenges are you facing with meeting these deadlines? Asking for perspective. This maintains the relationship while addressing the issue directly. Maintaining trust while being strategically selective about information is entirely possible. By focusing on observable facts and presenting opinions as opinions rather than universal truths, you can communicate effectively without damaging relationships. Your personal framework for strategic communication becomes complete when you evaluate each communication opportunity through 4 key lenses: relationship impact, timing, intent, and strategic alignment with your long-term vision. By applying these principles consistently, you develop communication habits that both serve your goals and maintain integrity. You'll find yourself automatically considering the strategic dimension of your words before speaking, just as Chanakya would advise. This framework is about effectiveness. Communication that damages your relationships or undermines your goals is ultimately ineffective, regardless of how honest it might be. True communication mastery comes from balancing truth with wisdom. Imagine the impact if every conversation you had was strategically aligned with your goals while maintaining complete integrity. This ancient wisdom can transform your modern communication, helping you build stronger relationships and achieve your most important goals. The most powerful truth from Chanakya isn't about honesty or deception. It's that communication is always strategic, whether you're conscious of it or not. Every word you speak creates ripples that either strengthen or weaken your position in life. Your words can build your future or destroy it based on their alignment with your long-term vision and relationships. This perspective transforms every conversation into a strategic choice. Does this communication serve my greater purpose? Ask yourself this question As you evaluate an important conversation through Chanakya's lens today, you may discover you've been unknowingly sabotaging your success through strategically flawed